If we do look at the farmer level, from our past data, farmers selling direct in Ethiopia saw an average increase in net profits. Let me make sure I said that. Yeah, net profits, average increase, yes, of 134%. So taking out all of the export expenses, all of the transport expenses, they're making more than double the money they would make selling at farm gate, selling it to a wet mill, selling it to a cooperative. And this is Ethiopia specific.
Our monthly Map It Forward online discussion group is a huge success. Professionals from across the coffee industry come together to have real open conversations about the challenges and opportunities we're all facing right now. If you've ever wanted to be a part of a serious, values-aligned community that talks about real solutions to the coffee crisis while meeting people from all over the world and across the coffee value chain, this is for you. It's part of our roasted coffee tier on our Patreon membership and will set you back about $20 a month. For this price, you'll also get early and ad-free access to the podcast, as well as access to our weekly Industry Insights blog post. Think of the kind of people that you've heard on this podcast. That's the caliber of participants and discussion you'll be contributing to. If the roasted coffee tier is a little out of your price range right now, there are two other options on Patreon that will give you the opportunity to support the work that we do at Map It Forward, and we're very grateful for that support no matter what tier you support us at. To join, head to patreon.com/Map It Forward and select the roasted coffee tier or check the show notes for details. Welcome to the Daily Coffee Pro by Map It Forward, friends. I'm your host, Lee Safar, and this is episode 2 of a 5-part series with Matthew Thornton from Arkena Coffee Market. Matthew is based in Addis Ababa in Ethiopia. And in this series, we're talking about responsible direct trade coffee relationships. And in this episode, we're talking about the benefits of direct trade and the challenges associated with achieving those benefits. So I guess I want to start this, Matthew, by asking you, what are the benefits of direct trade? Because I want to point something out here. We did not just theme this series as direct trade coffee relationships. We intentionally put in the word responsible direct trade coffee relationships. So what are the benefits of responsible direct trade coffee relationships?
So I think we can break this down on a couple different levels. And let's take a big picture look at it. What really happens is, if you have a responsible direct trade relationship, there's information flows, there's proper communication. I see that as a de-risking mechanism within your supply chain. When you have transparency and you can talk with the people you're buying coffee from, you can make plans. If something goes wrong, you can have contingency plans. Information moves fast, so you can be quick to respond to any problems. And if worst comes to worst, you guys can maybe compromise. You can come to compromises so you continue the relationship. And if you're a buyer, this means you continue to source the coffee you may have built demand previously on. So really at this big picture level, like, it bakes in like a de-risking mechanisms, in my opinion. If it's managed, again, if it's responsible. Now, we also have some really cool data from our previous years of work at Arkena, which I'd like to get into. And these focus more at origin and some of the impacts direct trade have on farmers, and a topic that is sorely overlooked in Ethiopia, or not Ethiopia, sorry, in the coffee industry, is rural producing economies. I think we ignore this so much. People like look at benefits, it's like farmer benefits, national benefits, the whole country. And I'm like, that's really leaving out a lot of people. Coffee could have more impacts if it's managed properly. Regardless, if we do look at the farmer level, from our past data, farmers selling direct in Ethiopia saw an average increase in net profits. Let me make sure I said that. Yeah, net profits, average increase, yes, of 134%. So taking out all of the export expenses, all of the transport expenses, they're making more than double the money they would make selling at farm gate, selling it to a wet mill, selling it to a cooperative. And this is Ethiopia specific. It will vary for other countries. And what we see is like,
Can I stop you there for a second?
Yeah.
Hold on. I just want to make sure that I'm understanding this correctly. Excuse me. And so that the folks at home that are listening can make sure that we're keeping up with you. So what you're saying is that the smallholder farmers are, or anyone who's doing responsible direct trade relationships, when they do these relationships, they are making more than 100% compared to what they're making if they sell the traditional way, whether they sell it to a co-op or they sell it at farm gate, whatever.
Yeah.
So if they take care of, from the farmer's perspective, if they take care of organizing their own selling mechanisms and relationships, the benefits to them on a financial basis are more than 100% of what they get if they do it the other way.
Yeah. And that's net profit into their pocket.
That's not nothing.
Oh.
Like, that's nothing to sneeze at, right? Like,
No.
that's a game changer.
Yes. We have farmers. Smallholder farmers are making more money than I did. I think that's a sign of success.
And the reason,
yeah.
so this is not an Arkena thing. This is just the data that Arkena has collected. But we're not talking about Arkena here. We're talking about responsible direct trade relationships.
Yes.
So from what you guys have observed, if a farmer can find the right relationship, the money that they're saving from taking back ownership of all of those relationships from them to the buyer is netting them back into their pockets more than 100%.
Yes. In Ethiopia, specific to smallholder farmers, because that's who we work with.
Right.
I think an exporter
But that's
probably
your
has,
lived experience, right?
Yeah. I should probably preface all of that with the statement like, everything I say is based on my work, research, and everything in the coffee industry. But yeah, for smallholder coffee farmers in Ethiopia that we have worked with, they have seen an increase in net profits of 134%. And it's important to note that we don't set pricing. We have a mechanism for farmers to set their own pricing and for them to negotiate with buyers. So this is also like not something I'm forcing onto like buyers to pick up. This is organic sales coming through farmer-buyer negotiations, which is another important piece of all of it.
And for people out there that are like, because I know that there are some people who are listening to this and saying, well, this is just for, the farmers who know how to speak English and this doesn't include, no. That was one of my questions to Matthew. The tech that they're using takes care of the translation so that you talk in whatever language you want to talk in and the farmer talks in Amharic, I believe it is.
Amharic or a farmer.
And the tech takes care of the translation.
Yes.
So, and the reason I point this out is because often the barrier to direct relationships is language.
Yeah.
A lot of the time it's language. And so people think it's not going to get, only the people who have the benefits and the privilege of learning English and et cetera, they're the only ones who get to do this. And I wanted to make sure that people have that information. This is not that. We are talking about 100% net. I didn't know this. Anyway, keep going. Tell me more.
So that's like a benefit directly to the farm. And now again, let's go back to these rural producing communities. I mean, we overlook it so much. We know that coffee industry is extractive. It just pulls money out 100%. Of these entire regions. And coffee is a finicky product. Like, it needs the right amount of rain at the right time in the right quantity, and it can't go outside of certain temperatures, or like you have a crop failure. And if you go to someplace in Ethiopia, they're really dependent upon coffee for local GDP. So you have this risky crop that's prone to failure, whose pricing is volatile. And then you have extraction that's constantly happening and just pulling out the vast majority of GDP generation in these areas, is pulling it out, taking it to the capital city, or worse, it's taking it out of the country. you not only expose farmers to problems, but all the people that live in the community where that GDP is being generated are also exposed. And as we go into climate change and crops are becoming less predictable, pricing is more volatile, it doesn't just expose farmers to risks, it exposes the entire regions to risk. And one of the nice things about sourcing direct from farmers is it keeps money in producing communities. These guys aren't up here. Like if you come to Addis, anyone that's been here in the last like 10 years, that's like the skyline is just scaffolding. There's constantly new buildings coming up. And, a lot of that money is coffee money. It comes up here, which is fun. But we need to keep money. It's not from, I guess, smallholder farmers coming up here and investing in buildings. They invest in their communities. They invest in their homes. They come up with new ideas. And we're starting to get evidence. I kind of thought of this for a while. I'm like, man, I bet you this could be like smallholder farmers. If they make good money, they could be catalysts for rural economic development. And it's taken time.
Yeah.
It's taken time, but it's happening. We're just starting to get insights into it. And there's 3 things farmers invest back into after they get contracts. The first thing is their farming operations. Like 99% of the time, a farmer gets a contract year 1, year 2, they invest into their operations. They have better beds, they have proper shade netting, they build like warehousing to store their coffee on their site, which is good for buyers. Like quality and consistent quality gets better. Secondly, farmers invest into their families. We have farmers that are sending their kids to private universities here in the capital city. And for me, it's a long play game, but I hope one of 2 things: those kids come back with new ideas and create new opportunities in their communities, or God forbid, they get out of this volatile coffee industry and go find something more successful to work on. Both are win-wins for me. And then the third thing we see is that farmers invest in new businesses. They're starting to. We have farmers that are starting like agricultural inputs, and they're starting, one guy's starting like electronic sales and stuff, like hardware sales in his hometown. Then there's other examples of businesses that I'm losing, but this creates new opportunities in these communities. It keeps
the new ecosystem.
A new ecosystem where money stays there, trades hands, creates prosperity in these rural producing communities that are no longer reliant upon coffee for everything. And, exposed to the whims of, traders in the West or the weather patterns that are growing more unpredictable. So it really does have this kind of compounding effect.
Which is like what the specialty coffee industry has been touting like for decades now, that we need to help these, given coffee is so extractive, we need to help these communities thrive. We haven't achieved it. We haven't gotten anywhere close, given the way that we've acted as an industry. We haven't achieved anywhere near the kind of success we wanted for the farmer.
Yeah.
Because of a whole bunch of reasons that we won't get into. We don't have time to get into. But these direct trade relationships are a way to just do like legitimate business.
Yeah.
Like, I'm going to find a supplier I want to work with.
Yeah.
And that supplier wants to sell me their goods. We're going to build a viable buying philosophy in our business by having shared risk with our suppliers, and we're going to build over the years.
Yeah.
Whatever the coffee crisis does, I'm going to work with my farmers so that they can stay in business, and by them staying in business, I'm staying in business. The bare bones of it is that whatever they choose to do with that money is their fucking business.
100%.
If they want to make their lives better, they are going to make their lives better. They're going to make their communities better. If they want to piss it down the drain, it's their choice to piss it down the drain.
Yeah, it's their money.
Drain.
Yeah.
It's their money. But at the end of the day, the people who you choose to do business with is the beautiful color of direct trade relationships.
100%.
You want to do business with somebody who wants to help contribute to their community? Great.
Yeah.
If you want to do business with people who snort cocaine, great. Do what you want to do.
Yeah.
But don't judge people for the choices that they're making.
Yeah.
And then move forward doing what you're doing. Like, this is the benefit for everybody from direct trade relationships. And low key, I see direct trade as one of the silver bullets for anyone who's choosing to survive this coffee crisis. This is one way you're going to get out of it.
100%.
But it's going to take time to build it.
Yeah.
Whether you use Arkena or you decide to go it alone, building these relationships is hard work. But they come with many, many, many benefits. And we've got Marianella Byers-Jost coming on the podcast. And she is a farmer who does direct relationships. And she's going to talk about that from her perspective as a farmer.
Yeah.
Anyway, now let's look at some of the challenges that are associated with achieving the benefits that you've been talking about.
Yeah. So the challenges are numerous, but we notice an interesting trend. So when we started Arkena, it was back in 2021. Before that time, I had experience working with smallholder farmers. I was talking with them. I can speak the local languages of Oromo, some Amharic. So I have very personal conversations with farmers, learn about their struggles, their wants. And I had a pretty good grasp of the problems were here. And the biggest hurdles we identified, I guess to preface that, we built Arkena very targeted to address specific hurdles in the supply chain that prevent scalability of direct trade. And what we found at origin was one, farmers' market access issues. So farmers have language barriers. There's infrastructure like networks and road barriers. There's maybe even business. So a lot of farmers, maybe they want to do international trade, but they don't have the business experience. So like this market access problem was number one. Number two was logistics. Now smallholder farmers aren't producing a full container of coffee, meaning anything they ship has a higher per unit transport cost. Now, if you're buying this coffee and the farmers are paying more, they're going to charge more. Not only does it erode their profits, but if that coffee lands, it may erode your competitive edge in your local coffee market. So we're trying to find logistics solutions. Finance was another big one. And finance has the more typical characteristic problems like it makes farmers price takers versus price setters. They may be short on cash. They need to move coffee. They don't have the benefit of time. They got bills and stuff they need to pay today. But additionally, there's finance hurdles for actually processing and exporting coffee. Like that costs money. You have to send it to Addis, you have transport to the port, you have fees and every other thing. So finance was a barrier for farmers. And before we really began developing Arkena, I went to the US and I drove 5,400 kilometers in a go-kart of a car in the US around the Northeast, the Midwest, and I was stopping by every town or big city that had cafes, importers, roasters, and I went to them and knocked on their door and I was like, what do you look for in trade? If they're like, oh, we look, trying to like hint at like direct trade, do you like it? Is it something that's in your business model? And if it is, what is preventing you from doing it? And the interesting thing was, it was like the same hurdles that farmers faced reaching buyers was the same hurdles that buyers faced reaching farmers. Market access or sourcing access. Again, they don't know the local language. They probably don't have the time and the cash to come to origin. And if they do, it's most likely they're going to run into an English-speaking large exporting company and be doing trade with them versus some farmer that is living in rural Ethiopia. Then they don't share the same language. It's really hard to actually source where you want to. Logistics, again, there's a lot of buyers that don't have the financial capacity to buy a full container of coffee and then tie up liquidity for 6 months, a year, however long it takes to get through it.
Right.
So if they're buying smaller volumes, they're paying more per unit shipped. And then finally, finance. They don't always have access to the best finance. Just like I mentioned before, they may not be able to afford massive quantities of coffee due to liquidity restraints. But it was very interesting to see the challenges of both sides. And those were the big three persistent ones. And I would say outside of experience, because experience is another thing from farmers and buyers, international logistics is rough. It's not a friendly environment. You mess up and you're owing thousands of dollars. Demurrage fees, the backlogs, like you need to know what you're doing. And when you're running a business with like tight profits, you can't afford those mishaps.
No.
So those experience was a final leg in both of them. And those are the hurdles we identified and we started building our platform towards.
One of the questions that I'm sure people out there have about this is, how do farmers, so when you're dealing with something like direct trade relationships, getting paid is interesting in Ethiopia. For example, even when Mapper Forward run workshops and things like that, mastermind groups, it's difficult for me to have a business relationship with someone in Ethiopia if they don't already have US dollars because I can't send them out of the country, right? So talk to me about how that works, even with Arkena. Like, how do you guys take care of helping the farmer figure that part of it out?
So we have an entire team dedicated to supporting farmers and buyers, really putting in guardrails for facilitating trade. And when it comes down to sales, we're not an exporter. I don't want to be an exporter. I think farmers gaining that experience of being an exporter on paper and slowly taking more and more responsibility over the years puts them on a track to becoming a strong, independent business outside of us.
Yeah, awesome.
But for us, when it comes down to handling payments, the buyers sign a contract with the farmers. The buyers, we have PSS approvals or pre-shipment sample approvals and a bunch of quality checks before they have to pay. But then they pay directly to the farmer. And that's the current model. We're working on other options where we might be able to become an intermediary for buyers, but that's definitely down the road. So right now they're paying directly to farmers. And that has benefits for farmers as well, because
1,000%.
Ethiopia, if you have dollars coming in, you get to keep a portion of that as USD. And what we've seen is farmers actually, because of these contracts, they get into more financial or traditional financial institutions. For example, if they have coffee contracts, they can get loans from the bank. And we're starting to see farmers getting backed by banks because of the trade they're doing, which opens up so many more doors for them. But when we handle it, again, we don't take the payment. It goes direct to the farmer. We just make sure everything's above board and that just like we vet farmers, we vet buyers. We make sure buyers are quality buyers that aren't going to expose farmers to any risks.
So how do you get paid?
We invoice farmers after they get paid, and we finance all of their export operations.
Okay. So that happens after the farmer gets paid. You're basically a service and they pay you for that service after they've received the money, and you're just a cost of doing business. Yeah.
And then
it's like a matchmaker fee.
Basically, yeah. And really, we provide that finance hurdle that farmers have to struggle to get into export markets. We finance all of the coffee processing out to port. That way, starting up, they don't have that kind of cash. It's a lot of money to send coffee out. So we cover that for them.
Yeah, awesome.
And at the end, pay us back and we're good.
Yes. So one of the things that I constantly hear from farmers all over the world is this idea that I just don't know how to get started. And I believe that farmers are some of the smartest people in our entire supply chain. It's the barriers of language and access that really stifle them being able to be as successful as they could potentially be. And what I see is going to be the challenge here is just how do we give people the access and give them the training wheels to figure out, like, how does this direct trade stuff work? if we can do that, and it looks like Arkena is one of the things that does that, at least for Ethiopia, this is what shifts what we're going through right now as an industry, but also starts mitigating some of the risk. And that's what we're going to talk about in the next episode. Did you like what I just did there? Well, in the next episode, we're talking about risk distribution. So join us for the next episode, folks. Peace, love, and peanut butter. Have an amazing rest of your day. This episode is part of a 5-part series produced by Mapper Forward. Check the full playlist and guest details in the show notes, as well as how you can support our work in the coffee industry. Become a premium YouTube subscriber, explore our Patreon and any brands we've partnered with to bring you this podcast. Please don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. It really does help us grow our audience.